Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Nonprofit Curious podcast. I'm so excited to introduce Roger, a new friend of mine. And today we're going to be chatting about strategies for inclusive fundraising and share about his story and journey with the nonprofit sector. Roger, will you go ahead and introduce yourself and where you're located?
Indeed. New friend and neighbor, because I am
Hmm.
here in Portland, Oregon, and just down the street from you.
Yep.
And my name is Roger Devine, and I am one of the founders of a company that helps nonprofits plan, manage, and run fundraising events. We've got a piece of software that we publish and distribute that is designed for nonprofits to use to put on galas and the like. And our core market tend to be more of the grassroots nonprofits, the ones that are community based,
Yeah,
which
that's
is going to
where
kind of dovetail tail into what we want to talk about today.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where most of my listeners are. They're in that like grassroots, like bootstrapping phase of their nonprofit journey, starting to grow. So I'm really excited personally to learn more about what you do with School Auction, but also obviously to hear your story. So,
Sure.
will you share how did you get introduced into the nonprofit field? And then how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, the reason that we have such an affinity for community based nonprofits is because those were the first nonprofits that we were ever involved in. Myself and my partners, we were all involved in that most classic of a community-based nonprofit, a PTA at our kids' schools. I was PTA president for a couple of years there,
Nice.
while I was sort of unemployed in between, tech industry jobs and the like. And it was right around the time that auctions were picking up steam in Portland, in the Portland public schools, and so we were going to do one at my kids' school, and I started looking around for people who could help me with that and got introduced to a couple of other dads who were at one of the other local schools, and they liked to write software, and I had sold software before, and so we got together and we started a company. And we really, really quickly realized that when you're going to take yourself out into the world of nonprofits, that there's a wide, wide diversity in nonprofits and how they work, how they fundraise,
Hmm.
what kind of assets and resources they have to draw on, what kind of traditions they'll have. And we realized pretty quickly that the nonprofits that we had the most affinity for were either going to be based around a school or a church or a park or some sort of community that comes together locally and is not going to ever be featured on the evening news as having, the social event of the year, for their fundraiser. But they are going to be doing that block and tackle work there out in our communities, making real visible differences
Hmm.
on that level, on that local level there.
Yeah.
Like I say, our initial entree into this was through our, helping to support our kids' school communities. But then we always got dragged into, once once you start seeing these things, you start seeing them everywhere. And our churches needed the same help, and my Rotary Club, and there's this whole growing market that we begin to see out there in the world that we can take our software out to and help. And so that's
Yeah.
been kind of the mission for the last 20 years or so.
I think that's so funny that you said, like essentially, and I know a lot of listeners will relate to, once you fundraise, everyone wants a slice of the pie. They're like, oh, you know how to do that.
You know how to do that. Oh, you were involved at that gala, or you were
Yeah.
involved at that online auction. It's
You
like,
help us
come
with
here,
our.
come here, come here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's so
Yeah,
relatable.
the way that I talk about it is I say, we're members of a tribe. There is a
Yeah.
tribe of us in the United States. There's probably 100,000 of us. that
Yeah.
are the people that just work all of the fundraising events.
Hmm.
We do the golf tournaments and we do the little galas and the big galas,
Yeah,
and we
I'd
tend to
love
do
to
them
hear.
over and over again. Once you get
Yeah,
sucked
right.
in,
Yep, 100%. I
yeah.
would be so curious to hear, in either order, one, how that first one went for you guys. And then two, if you have like an example of maybe how things have changed over the years, like what's a successful client that you've had come use your product?
Mm, I think that initially what things looked like was a lot different, but very, very similar in terms of the architecture of the problem.
Mm,
From day one, the problem has been that a fundraising event can essentially be defined as you got this group of people and you've got this group of things, and you want to kind of ram them together and shake money out of it.
hmm.
And that really hasn't changed in 20 years. There's still a lot of that going on there. You've got these opportunities for people to contribute money to the organization in various ways. There's various mechanisms for that, raffles or silent auctions or live auctions or what have you, mulligans at your golf tournament, what have you. And you're bringing together people, and you got these big data sets that need to be coordinated. The people and the things need to be brought together in an efficient way, and money needs to be shaken out of that collision, right, and collected efficiently. So the basic idea hasn't changed too terribly much. Of course, all of the mechanisms have changed. All of the ways in which people design the little games and the opportunities for donating to the organization have all evolved quite a bit over the course of 20 years. I think that one of the one of the profound changes that came out of COVID, which of course was a defining portion of the evolution of galas and fundraising events over the last 20 years. One of the things that came out of that is that fundraising events got a lot smaller in terms of their footprint.
Hmm.
One of the reasons which you used to need more space for your fundraising event was that everybody wanted to bring their entire silent auction to the event and set it all up there, and people would participate in the silent auction portion of the fundraiser only in person,
Yeah.
or both in person and online, but there was going to be this big in person component to it.
Mm.
One of the big shifts we've seen over the last few years is that that's all moved online exclusively, at least the silent auction has, for probably 65, 70% of our customers.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a really fundamental change. That frees them up to have different styles of venue, smaller venues, etc. And it allows them to thread this particular needle, which, I do want to get around to talking to, which is how do we include people in our fundraising event that maybe are not the first people we think of, and when we turn to how am I going to raise money?
Hmm. Yeah.
First person I think of when it's, how am I going to get a whole lot of money for my nonprofit is, well, there's Melinda French Gates. We could go talk to her. She's got a lot. But if I'm going to be raising money in my community from people who are not naturally part of the donor class, how do I do that? And one of the things that has been an obstacle for many organizations that relied on fundraising events was this idea that you needed to have a ticket cost. You needed to kind of cover that large space you needed to rent through, a relatively hefty ticket cost. And that was exclusionary.
Yeah.
Moving things online is a little more inclusionary, you know,
That's a great
or
point.
inclusive. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's something that, like, I was part of like early, right out of college, like fundraising for a couple of nonprofits doing this type of work. And yeah, I remember ticket prices being like 150 per person, you know. And to your point, like we would give away some tickets so a few other people could come, but it was super exclusionary.
Mhm. Well, and then what you wind up with is you wind up with you wind up going to the same human beings
Mm,
that the other nonprofits in your community are going to. And that's probably a good thing. These people are known donors, they've got capacity, yeah, go to them. Definitely go to them. I'm not saying don't. But if part of your mission is community based, or if you need to have a broader base for your fundraising that is a little bit better able to weather variety in,
mm,
the economy, then you got to think about bringing people into your fundraising event who are not part of that donor class,
yeah.
that are that are that are just regular human beings who are members of your community, who participate within your community, and who very likely are find themselves invested in your community. So would be willing to come and help you out with a fundraiser if they are asked in an appropriate way.
Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that point. I think that's so powerful because, I think a lot of nonprofits will read books or look at resources online and they're told, go find the highest donors in your community, like you're saying. And I think personally, like fundraising is really neat because it's an invitation to be a part of what you're doing. And
absolutely.
it doesn't necessarily mean it's monetary, like sometimes it is, can you get somebody to come volunteer with you at the event or at something that you're doing, and then that becomes an awareness campaign also, and so it becomes, they start developing a relationship with you and your organization, and then maybe the donations come later, maybe they don't, but it's just as powerful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You're building a more resilient organization because you are spreading um, you're spreading its lifeblood out
Hmm.
amongst a larger network of people here.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I love that.
Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of what we got into there with, the initial side of things of like PTAs, We started a company, we called it School Auction. Hey, schools throw auctions.
Hmm.
Let's call it that. People
Yeah.
should be able to find us online.
Yeah.
And so we put that out there, but really, probably our fastest growing cadre of customers over the last few years have been, they're still somewhat school adjacent, but I'm going to call them, other, extra school local communities. Got a big deal done with Young Life a few years ago. It's really been fantastic for us. I love going to Young Life auctions. They're so much fun. They're
Mm,
great events. And the people who are putting them on, just angels who walk the earth,
yeah.
just fantastic human beings.
Hmm.
So we've been able to help them out a lot. We've been able to help out a whole lot of those nonprofits that are very local in their impact.
Hmm.
That are going to impact a neighborhood, that are going to impact community centers. You
Mm,
know, um, love working with various ethnic community centers around the country. It's like great.
yeah.
It's like where for 10 years, 10, 12 years, we've worked with the Ethiopian Community Center up in Seattle. I
Mm,
love those guys. They're
yeah.
amazing. And they put on an amazing event every year. So it's like,
That's so cool. I love
yeah,
that. It seems like you get a lot of variety and, what started off as kind of this budding school auction PTA, group of dads. And
yeah.
now you've got this like huge footprint of a variety of people that you get to interact with. That's really cool.
There is variety in terms of, sort of the stages of life sometimes, in terms of the specific missions. The thing that I love about them that they have in common, though, is that there is this element of it's up to us.
Yeah, right.
There's this element of this is our community
Mm,
and it's up to us to support this community.
yeah.
And I don't know, I just have an affinity for that. That's just the one of the most powerful messages I can think of.
Yeah.
Is like I'm going to take responsibility for this group of people around me.
Yeah. I can tell
You
you're
know.
really passionate about it, and I appreciate that because that's also my favorite I shouldn't say I have a favorite, but you know I do.
Sure, of
I
course
wouldn't
you
be
do.
doing what I'm doing either if I didn't have an affinity for it. But yeah, I just think that there's something about people who are down to like get involved with the things that they're actually passionate about and the problems they see in their own community and decide to do something about that. That's just like, that's the point. That's the whole point, you know?
That's the point. It's the whole point. I
Yeah.
will tell you one of the interesting things about doing this is that I this has completely broadened my mind. Um, Sometimes easily and sometimes not so easily, because when you get involved with passionate groups of individuals who want to improve their community, they come in all stripes.
Yes.
They are across any spectrum
Oh,
you
for
want to
sure.
draw.
Uh-huh.
Okay, you
Yeah.
can choose any two poles you want to pick, and
Mm.
we got nonprofit, we got little passionate nonprofits across the entire spectrum there.
Yeah.
I like to joke that we have to keep our Save the Wildcats people away from our Save the Wild Sheep people.
Yeah.
We just have to kind of keep them apart from each other.
Yeah.
But you can draw any spectrum you want to draw, and we've got customers on either end of it, which has always been a little eye-opening,
Yeah.
and there's something that a any fundraising company has got to understand, which is that the work of improving our community is very, very, very broad based.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and we have to support the whole thing.
Yeah. And that actually brings me to the next curiosity I have with what you're doing is, could you walk us through like what does it look like to be a part of what you're doing with School Action? From like somebody listening to this podcast who's like, I need help with this.
Sure. So, primarily, what it is that we do and what we help nonprofits achieve is have some sort of stable, easy to use system that provides the infrastructure necessary to design and plan and run a fundraising event. This is going to start with, I need to manage a group of human beings who have credit cards.
Hmm.
I need to manage a bunch of wallets. Okay. I need to manage a bunch of opportunities for those people to give money. So maybe this looks like I need to sell them tickets. I need to have auction items in a silent auction. There's other ways you can dress this up, but that's an easy to understand one. Um, so you got to manage these data sets. You've got to have ticket sales that collects all of your guest data together and gives you tools to help manage and manipulate that guest data. Fill it out, complete it, change it as necessary, etc. Map it onto particular opportunities that those people are going to have. A ticket gets you in the door. It may give you bidding privileges. It might get you a raffle ticket. It might, these kinds of things. Then you've got to manage all of these opportunities, a silent auction, a raffle, a live auction, sign up parties, the sky's the limit. Talent contests, the whole like of things. These are opportunities, fun opportunities for those people with credit cards to exercise their ability to give money to you.
Hmm.
And then you got to collect all of those payments. You got to somehow get those people to pay you for what they have committed to pay you, how they've committed to support you, and you've got to get that into your bank account, and you've got to do that cost effectively. Um, And that's kind of what we see our mission as. We're kind of the plumbing. We're in the back of the room, not the front of the room. I'm not your auctioneer. I love auctioneers, but they occupy a completely different end of the room than I do.
Yeah.
And they're up there causing the excitement. I'm back here being boring,
Hmm.
but I'm going to give you the boring tools to help make sure that checkout is seamless and quick and your guests leave with smiles on their faces and make sure that you get paid in a timely fashion. That kind of boring stuff is what we do.
Yeah, that's good. That's really helpful. I feel like, one thing I talk about with my clients and I'm adding on to my Substack and, just general consulting is how important those systems are in the background and how can we set those up before the day of. so we're not scrambling on top of running an event. It sounds like that's really your guys' secret sauce is like, let's set you guys up for success. Um,
Absolutely.
Help them think through those details that sometimes, if it's your first time, you don't know where to start, right?
Absolutely. And one of the things about doing this, we spoke a little bit about once you get into fundraising, you're kind of a member of the tribe there, right? And we've seen this go on for over 20 years. And one of the more valuable aspects of working with us is you can just frickin' ask us questions. You
Yeah.
know, we've seen that. We're here. We know.
Yep.
It may look like an unsolvable problem to you, but we've been
Mhm.
dealing with this one for a long time. Don't worry about
Yeah. That's great. I think that's really helpful too because again, people just will Google away, and you can only do that in so many circles, so many times before you lose your mind.
it.
I've
Absolutely.
been there also as a consultant, and so yeah. So how does the platform work? Do people actually get to like work with you? Or are they emailing questions? Like, what's the interaction look like?
A large portion of it is self-driven by the organization themselves. If an organization wants to do it all on their own, they're certainly allowed to. They can go to our website, which is just schoolauction.net. You can sign up there. However, most of our customers don't do that. Most of our customers are not completely self-reliant. Most of them sign up for our training webinars, which are free, by the way.
That's great.
Work with our amazing support team, all located here in Portland. And they generally get off on the right foot through a little bit of that early training. We do a little bit of an onboarding, and then they go off and they iterate. They're in charge of designing what kind of event they want to run, which types of fundraising activities they want to include, and so they'll ask us how to set those up in the software. We'll point them in the right direction, and they'll do that. And then the night of the event, we do not provide personnel on site for them, but we do have telephone support up until generally 11 p.m. Pacific time. And it can go later if you're located in Alaska or Hawaii. And we'll be around for that. But we generally are working with the kinds of organizations that need to keep their costs relatively low. So we can't really afford to build into our packages the expense of providing on-site personnel. They
Hmm.
can do that with volunteers. We'll be happy to train the volunteers.
Yeah, right. That's great. I think that's a really like a happy spot for a lot of people because,
Mhm.
if you're running a nonprofit, chances are you're down to DIY and get into like learning this stuff. But yeah, having that extra like those bumpers on your bowling alley like can really help you save so much time, effort, and energy. Like so
Absolutely.
much. I wish I had this kind of support and like knowledge going into my first auctions. um, just even like, I mean, from collecting everyone's information. I remember, I think we had like a Google Sheets or Google Doc that we were inputting everything into initially, and I was like, there's a better way to do this. And then there's like following up with emails and like all of those things as thank yous for everyone. Is that part of your system as well? Is like
All of it. Sure.
so beautiful, wonderful,
Yeah.
so great.
And
Um,
then one of the really beautiful things, especially for the types of organizations that we're talking about today that are largely, if not exclusively volunteer run, they're at least largely volunteer driven. Volunteers have a pretty high turnover rate.
yeah.
And getting in bed with a system that allows you to maintain some institutional memory in
Mm,
some software, in
yeah,
some databases, not a bad idea
that's
as
a
you
great point.
cycle through a couple of generations of volunteers.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good point, actually. Didn't even think about that, but that's such a good point. Yeah, okay, so I want to just kind of, give us maybe 10 minutes to wrap up a little bit. What maybe one or two points would you give listeners in terms of those strategies, like final reminders on the inclusivity on fundraising? And then, of course, would love to hear how people can get started with you after that.
So when we're going to be inclusive about fundraising, I think the couple of things are really, really clear. You're going to need to have tiers of opportunities for people to contribute, and you're going to need to tie those tiers pretty clearly to potential to outcomes. People who are not in the professional donor class like to give money if they think there's a tangible result there. We all like tangible results, but it's more important if we're on a budget and we've got $100 to give. I want to know what my $100 is going to accomplish. Is it just going into a slush fund? I'm not interested. Thank you very much. So you want to tie things to specific outcomes. You want there to be as little overhead as possible involved in the particular ask you make to a person. If you're bringing them to an event and you're asking them in a special appeal to donate $100, maybe that's your final level in your special appeal. You've got to make sure that that donation of $100 there during the special appeal is 100% going to the cause.
Mm-hmm.
Is 100% going to, that there's no overhead involved in taking that you've cleared all of that ahead of time. You've covered that with sponsorships, or you've covered that with ticket sales, or you've covered that with whatever. If you're going to be selling tickets to a fundraising event, you have to realize that you need to give people an opportunity to get a free ticket. Maybe that looks like they're helping you by being a volunteer throughout the year for you and earning themselves a free ticket. Maybe it means they're working, an event of a partner of yours, a different nonprofit, and that nonprofit is going to send a few people over to work your event in return. Who knows? Give people an opportunity to participate both in the event and with the organization there. And I think you said it earlier, understand that, these are the people. This is tied to your organization here. You're going to tie them. Everything is going to be tied back to why they're initially involved with you, the mission that drove them to be a volunteer, drove them to be a participant in your community. Does that
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
I feel like I rambled a little bit there.
No, that was good. I really liked the point of, recapping that, basically anyone that's coming across your path is valuable. It's not just about like,
Of course.
yeah, I think that's really important to just keep in mind, especially in fundraising. It's so easy to just silo and be like, where are the dollars and where can I get them? And, uh, I
Which
think,
let's not downplay the importance of. If you've
sure.
got a big goal to cover, and you've got to cover it as efficiently as possible. There are really good time-honored methods of doing that. I just don't want to be exclusionary.
Yeah,
I
right.
want to say that there is a core of nonprofits out there that really benefit from doing broader based fundraising throughout their
Mm,
community. That's
yeah.
all.
Yeah. No, I love that. And then I had one more question. Well,
Sure.
we can slide it in, and then I'll have you close with your stuff. When is a gala worth it? When is it, or when, just even simpler, when is it worth it to bring you guys on?
Okay. It's worth it to bring us on. That's a really interesting question, because we've needed to adapt over time here. We've wanted to work with smaller and smaller organizations for a good reason. If we get in and start working with a small organization early on, there's a chance that we can work with them for many years. That's when we succeed if we've got a customer that we're working with for 10 or 12 years. And so we have designed products that make it easy enough to get into bed with us and start using our software if you're going to raise $5,000. If you're going to be raising less than $5,000, it's very difficult to do so outside of the tip-based platforms, and the tip-based platforms are a little abusive. They're not a good customer experience. Um, the If you're going to be raising $5,000 or so, or you think you can do a little online auction that can get you across that line, fine. Let's get you in the door. Let's start working with you there. Generally, historically, when is a gala worth it? Well, a gala is, It's another one of those questions. It's sort of how deep is a hole? The kind of galas that you see on sitcoms or on television shows that have got the big ice sculptures and everybody's in tuxedos and we're 70 floors up in the air in some skyscraper in New York City, etc. You're going to need to be raising a whole lot of money to justify one of those. A
Hmm.
school event in the gymnasium is going to have a much lower threshold. However, there's still a threshold. We used to say that that was probably $15,000. I'd say it's probably now closer to 20, before you're even going to necessarily want to get the school community together in the gym and throw a big party.
Hmm.
Um, that said, what we're finding, especially in the wake of the pandemic, is that a lot of organizations that would have done galas before are now doing more purely online events. They seem much more appropriately sized to their organization. And I think that's great. It's just an expansion of the market. It's just more organizations that get in and use this method to raise some money.
I love it. Yes, great. I always appreciate when people are like, galas are great. Here are some things to keep in mind.
Yeah,
Because, yeah, they are a lot of time, energy, money, all of
they are a lot of time, energy, and money. But I will say, though, that much of the pain I see in the worst of the galas is self-inflicted.
mm,
You really don't have to do many of the things that people think you have to do.
yeah.
You don't have to have a chocolate fountain, you know.
What?
You just don't.
Oh, come on,
And
Roger.
similarly, we don't have to have three speeches on stage from three dignitaries there. We
Mm,
really don't.
yeah,
You
right.
just don't.
Yeah.
You're causing yourself a lot of headache if you go down
Yeah.
that pathway.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Roger, tell people how they can find you, how they can find school action. Maybe they're ready to take the step. Maybe they're thinking about it. What do they need to do?
Yeah. So our website is www.schoolauction.net. I think schoolauction.com will also get you there, but we've been schoolauction.net forever. And once you get there, you can set up a trial of the software. You don't have to put in a credit card. You don't have to commit to anything. You can just set it up on trial basis. You won't be able to run a fundraiser while it's in trial basis, but you will be able to poke around, see whether you like it. And if you decide you're going to go forward, like I say, we got a wide variety of plans here. We can work with groups. We can work with small groups, and we can work with big groups. I don't mind. I don't mind working with big groups. They're great.
Yeah.
But I think our heart is in the groups that where it's up to us in the community.
Yeah. I love that. Well, Roger, thank you so much. I'll include all of the ways to get involved and all the social media links, as well as your
Fantastic.
blurb and bio in the show notes. Thank you. It was so good to have you on the podcast.
Same to
I
you.
learned a lot. It was good
Great.
reminiscing about fundraising and,
It's a lot of fun.
yeah, it's been great. And yeah, I would love to have you on again. We can chat about that more offline. But thanks
Fantastic.
so much. And thank you, everybody, for listening. Don't forget to share the podcast with anyone who you think this might be helpful to. And we look forward to having you on next. Bye.
Bye, everyone.